Hey everybody, real quick before we bounce into this review, I just pulled the jacket out and I was about to put it on and run around and shoot some B-roll, and the thing smells like 12 hobos have been living in it for the last year. And that's how you know this is a real review. Oh man. Man, I'm addicted to sparkling water. Hey everybody, welcome to Rev'it. You watch the side and right. Welcome to my review series where I'm going to be looking at the 5 big items that I wore with me every single day through 38,000 kilometers. That's 25,000 miles across 3 continents in every possible weather situation imaginable, and 4, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4 actual incidents that could have caused serious harm to me and did cause serious harm to me in a couple instances, and would have caused serious harm to my gear as well. This is going to be a real review, an honest review of some stuff that really matters, so stay tuned. First off, I'd just like to remind everyone that a lot of this stuff is subjective, and I am not an expert. Drill that into your head before you go venting through the comments section about how wrong I am. I am not an expert. I do not design motorcycle gear. I just use it. And I used it in a very, very real scenario where that stuff mattered a lot. That's it. That's my experience. That's what I have to offer. If you're looking for something else, you can go find it somewhere else. And the second thing I'd like to point out is that if you go online right now and you go to YouTube and you type in Rev'it Sand 3 review, you will see a lot of videos. There's probably 50 or 60 of them. None of them are reviews. What is the deal with that? Now, I should mention that there is one video by Brett Tax, who's the best from Mototrek. He's awesome, where he talks about the jacket, does talk about some real-world stuff involving the jacket, but he's mainly talking about jackets in general, which I am going to touch on some of that stuff. But keep in mind, Brett's an awesome guy. He also works with Rev'it. Oh, and here's a link to Brett's video. I'll even throw it up there. I'm aware that this video is going to ruffle some feathers, and I need to be honest. Honesty is really important, and there is a level of nuance that really doesn't seem to exist inside this conversation, and I feel like it really, really needs to. And if it seems like I'm amped up about this, it's because I am. I thought about this a lot over the last year while I was dragging this stuff through every condition possible. There is no such thing as a perfect jacket at all. Period. End of story. There's no such thing as the best jacket. All there is a set of circumstances and a set of realities that you're going to have to face, and you need to figure out if those realities line up with what that jacket is designed to do, and vice versa. That's it. One of the reasons I'm so heated when it comes to this stuff is that I did a lot of research before I made this video, just to kind of see what was out there. And I cannot believe how much bull there is in this world. Every single video on YouTube that's titled Rev'it Sand 3 Review is not a review. It's an unopened jacket from a guy who's never worn it, most of the time in the back of a motorcycle store with a camera. What is that? That's not a review. It's an overview of the features, and if you wanted to see the overview of the features, that would be a fantastic thing to look at. You could also just look at the spec sheet. How does watching a video of a guy who's never even worn the jacket, never ridden it in the rain, never been through the heats of Central America in it, never been in the Andes with it, never almost froze to death with it on top of a mountain, how does that help you? All right, let's get to it. It's a beautiful day outside. We're going to go get some shots of the jacket outside. First things first, let's put her on. Now, one thing I will say, and this is ultimately superficial, but like most people, there was an element of style involved in my purchase decision. If you are a thin European build like I am, you're gonna love the way this jacket fits. When I went to the store, tried it on, fit really, really well. I said to myself, that is a jacket I could wear every day. first thing that you'll notice when you pick up the jacket is that it is heavy. And that has a really reassuring quality to it. It feels super solid. The construction feels amazing compared to every other jacket I ever tried on, and the jacket that I owned before this one. Wow, thick, very starchy, sort of a heft to it. So that's good. This brings me to my second point of contention from a snag perspective. Watch as I just naturally try to zip the jacket up. What is that? Now, I know what you're saying. That's the storm flap. That's the thermal liner. You're supposed to have all that stuff tucked in. Okay. Let's do that. Let's tuck the rain liner in. This is the rain liner. Let's try that again. Totally naturally. Let's even oh, look at that. I can't even get it down. What happens is every single time you zip this jacket up, and I don't know who in the world thought this was like the appropriate way to do this design, is this storm flap here, which is on the outer shell of the jacket. So no matter whether you have no liners in or both of them in, it will catch every single time. And I know what you're thinking. Benjamin, see, I can't even get it undone. Benjamin, there are snaps that are supposed to hold that back. Yeah, there are snaps that are supposed to hold that back. One here and one all the way up here. So this whole section in the middle, you literally have to grab it, force it over with your fingers, pull it, and once it gets stuck, pull it out of the zipper every time. You have to go like this. Watch. This is how I had to do this. And I zipped and unzipped this jacket, 15 times a day. I have to hold it back like this. Often while I'm driving, push it in. Then every step of the way, make sure that if I have the liners in, they're all tucked in to get it zipped. Why aren't they held back? I seriously don't understand why that design is like that. Even if they had just put one extra snap right here, it wouldn't have that problem. And look, I know I'm being nitpicky, but this is an expensive jacket that serves a specific function. And that if it can't do that easily and seamlessly, then it's a bad design. And it could be fixed. I just told you how to fix it, but they didn't. So it annoyed me every single day. So, it's not the end of the world, but it's something that you should be aware of when you're gonna basically live in a jacket for a year, or for 2 years, or for 3 years, or for 4 years, or for 5 years. This is the kind of jacket that you should be able to wear every day for years and years on end, especially at this price point, and not have something about it that just annoys you that much. Especially when there's nothing, like the only thing I could possibly have done was have this like stitched shut right here. This is where it happens every single time. So I got to dock points for that. All right, I know it sounds like I'm being harsh. So let's talk about some things that I like about the jacket, and let's talk about some times that it really saved my bacon. So, I'm just going to walk through all the damage on the jacket right now, and keep in mind that there were 4 at-speed incidents in the course of my trip that where you really wanted the jacket to perform well. So, let's start with this sleeve, because this is where a lot of the damage was. So this is everything you see here, this is from Guatemala in the big accident. So some of this abrasion here, this came from the low side in Colombia where I slipped on paint in the rain on the highway passing a semi-truck and slid about 40-50 feet. It just kind of roughed all this up. But if you look really carefully here, you'll see the imprint of the armor. Here and here, all these little web patterns here. So that makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like the armor did its job really well. And then if it wasn't there, I would probably have broken my arm or my elbow. All these abrasions here, and you can see actually the only zipper that broke was right here, and it actually still it catches there, but the zipper itself still was able to close all the way. So I consider that a big win. Over here, on this corner, this was from the low side in Mexico where I hit an oil slick in a roundabout while I was in a turn. I didn't see it because there was a car right in front of me. Bike went sideways and I slid maybe 20, 25 feet. And all it did was just scuff a little bit here and take some of the shine off of the logo. So that was great too. At one point in the accident in Guatemala, this got actually caught around something in a wreck and pulled out, and I was able to get this restitched in Ecuador for I think $1.75, which is really amazing. Very, very happy with how all that did. You know, there's a little bit of wear here from some what would have been road rash, so that's really good to have. One that I don't have any excuses for is, what's the deal with this? I never understand why people use snap rivets like this. This ripped out immediately. This probably happened in the first month of the trip, so I was never able to get like a firm fit right here. One thing that really impressed me about the jacket, and this is the dirtiest part, is actually the back here, was how clean it stayed. This jacket has never been cleaned, it's never been washed. In the whole last year, you're not supposed to machine wash the stuff because it will remove some of the some of the hydrophobic coating. But look how, I mean, it's relatively close to the color that it was in the beginning. This is the silver / anthracite version. You know, but really, I mean, this is pretty good. If you compare this to my pants, now granted, pants take a lot more abuse from dirt and grime, because they're just closer to the ground and you're crawling around and you're working in the garage and you're working in shops and you're, you know, so this part of the jacket really doesn't see a lot of action in that regard. But I mean, I think it did really, really well. So I give Rev'it big props for that, because it just did a lot better than my pants, which were Alpine Stars, Dry Star Andes touring pants. Okay, this is the part I'm probably going to take some heat for. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and this is not, you know, I'm not the end of the line here for what this is. It is kind of subjective. But let's start by popping these liners out. I didn't wear the liners 95% of the trip. And that's going to kind of start this little tirade. Okay, that's how long it took to get the thermal liner out of the jacket. Now I'd like somebody to explain to me, what is this? I mean, I know it's a thermal liner, quote unquote, but what is it? This is a cheap piece of polyester with the absolute bare minimum cotton stuffing. This is functionally useless in every possible way. This cannot be worn on its own unless you plan on looking like a complete dumbass. So you know what I would do? And I'm about to save you some space in your pack right now. Take this thing and throw it away or leave it at home, because there is absolutely no reason to bring that on your trip. Why would you bring an article of clothing that is functionally useless outside of the jacket, and honestly not very functional inside the jacket? It's thin, it's not very warm, it really didn't change anything as far as the dynamics of heat control went. Why would you bring that? You're not on the bike all day, every day. You're traveling. You already have a probably an insulated hoodie or a down jacket. I would highly recommend like a packable jacket of some kind to save some space and save some weight. It does everything that does, except that it isn't completely useless when you're not wearing the jacket. Not to mention, did you see how long it took me to get that thing out of the jacket? What's the point? Why not just, do you know how fast it is to just put a sweatshirt on and then put that on? Well, what's the difference? The difference is you're saving time, you're saving space, and you're saving weight. That's it. Okay, now it's time to talk about the rain liner. Now, the rain liner is made of this stuff. It's Rev'it's version of Gore-Tex. And I'm gonna, as I'm talking, pull this. Well, that sleeve was already disconnected from the thermal liner, but anyway, you know, this is another thing that you need to zip into your jacket. And I did side-by-side tests. There is no difference at all between having this liner that takes forever to put in and take out of your jacket and makes you hotter when you don't want to be hot. There's no difference between wearing this and wearing your rain jacket that you already have underneath the shell. So why are you carrying this around? This and the thermal liner were wrapped up and taking up a bunch of this much space in one of my panniers the entire trip. 95% of the time I didn't wear them. So once again, does it work? Yeah, if you dump some water on here, it'll bead off. It does a very good job of beating off water. The problem is, it's underneath a shell. The shell does not keep rain out. As soon as the water's been on there for more than about a second, if it doesn't bead off immediately. So this is kind of where I want to talk about the weather conditions. In light rain, a shell by itself is fine because the water hits it, water beads off, and that's the end of it. But in heavy rain, like, I don't know, rainy season in Central America or storms in the Andes, the kind of actual situations you're going to be in, Patagonia in the early summer, you're going to be dumped on. No amount of anything is going to keep you dry, because the first thing that's going to happen is your hands and your wrists are going to get wet. I mean, if you wear gloves with gauntlets, maybe, I don't know, I didn't have them, so I can't attest to that. But if you're wearing normal gloves, the water's just going to bead off your gloves, go into your sleeves, and it's going to start traveling because the air is pushing that water up. I never, ever in heavy rain had the jacket with all 3 liners keep me dry. I was usually wet all the way up to here, and then into here, and then all through here because it would get underneath the jacket too, even if I had them cinched up all the way. And I know there are companies that make layering systems, like Adventure Spec makes a layering system where the stuff is still usable and wearable and looks nice when you're not writing. But I would say 90%, I mean, and I could be wrong here, but 90% of the market is people making jackets that are rated as like 4-season jackets or whatever, adventure touring jackets, and they all have these liners. This is how the industry has decided to tackle weather management in an adventure setting. Well, as Fort9 famously said, to me anyway, I think about this all the time, and I thought about it all the time last year, 2 is 1 and 1 is nothing. Carrying something around that only serves one function might as well not exist, because you need to be ready for anything, and you need to maximize your volume of carrying capacity, your weight of carrying capacity, and the amount of time that it takes to mess with all this stuff. I know it seems like in a year you have all the time in the world to do all these things, but the time goes by very quickly, and you need to maximize that time. All right, this is turning into the world's longest review video, so I'm going to wrap this up really quickly. Here, I'm just going to give like out of 5 stars, I'm going to give a rating in the categories that I think, based on my experience, this jacket needed to perform and how it does. Protection, 5 out of 5. Doesn't come with a back protector. That's kind of insane to me. You're gonna buy a $550 jacket after tax or VAT or whatever. Doesn't have a back protector already in it. I really don't understand what is going on with these companies. That should absolutely be standard. But other than that, this jacket probably kept me from breaking multiple bones, and it did a really, really good job at protecting my body. I slid 45 feet in one incident, 25 feet in another incident, had a high impact with a vehicle moving at speed in another incident, and ran off the road and flipped the bike twice in my last one in Peru that I was so ashamed about that I'd never even told anyone. It's nice to have some distance from that. And in all of that, I did not break, other than in my wrist. I had two small fractures in my wrist in Guatemala. But other than that, on the top half of my body that the jacket was responsible for, no broken bones and no road rash. So I think that's fantastic. I think that the jacket is very durable and performed really admirably in that way. I give it a 5 out of 5 in durability. As far as weather goes, in the heat, it's really good. It's got a lot of vents. I would open it up all the way. I would zip all those huge sleeve zippers back, and it was like I had the protection, but it didn't feel like I had a lot on. I think for hot weather, 5 out of 5. It's a great jacket for that. It's not going to be the same as a mesh jacket, but it's going to do really, really well. In wet weather, in light rain, like any shell, it did just fine. In heavy rain, forget about it. It might as well have barely had anything on, even with all 3 liners in. It really never kept me dry in torrential downpours. And honestly, I'm not really sure that outside of a non-permeable rain suit, I don't know that anything really would. I've driven through some crazy rains in my life. I drove all the way across Vietnam during rainy season, all the way across Central America in rainy season, summer in Patagonia, and what's the other big rain? Oh, and Canada during a pretty wet time of the year. And you know, I always got a little wet. But this jacket in particular, I was always wet in the sleeves, always wet in the upper chest, and always wet here. There was usually like a dry spot like right here. And I know that people in the comments are gonna say, oh, you know, I've been wearing the same jacket for years and never got wet. Yeah, okay, great. I'm glad that you had that experience. I'm not here to dispute yours. I'm here to tell mine. So that was my experience with the jacket. As far as weather goes. Cold, not great. Not great. I was not cold very often on this route. You really won't be, unless you decide to go to Patagonia in winter or something like that. But it didn't, the thermal liner, like I showed, not great. I give it maybe a 3 out of 5 in cold. What else do I got here? Oh, wind. We should talk about wind. Wind did really well, actually. I never, at least with the rain liner in there, I mean, you know, it was pretty hot and muggy inside the jacket. Very, very snug. I didn't really have a lot of wind issues. Oh, functionality, I think I would give it like a 3.5. All those zippers, the huge zippers are great, but they offer a lot of areas to snag. The way the liner zipped in did not do it for me at all. It was very clunky, very difficult to get to all the attachment points. And if you tried to do it without snapping all those things, then you would end up with what I showed at the beginning, where like the sleeve is popping out, and it did that anyway. Yeah, functionality wise, it's just honestly just the zipper catching all the time on the main thing, and the fact that the storm flaps didn't cover. Yeah, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. One of the advertised features of the jacket is these like the storm flap pockets on the front, which they're fine as far as pockets go, but they don't keep water out. In fact, in Patagonia at one point, with them all the way closed and snapped, I took my phone off the bike, put my phone in the pocket. When I got to my destination, the phone was in a pool of water. All the pocket did was allow the rain to sweep up the jacket, dive right in, and then create a pool. So rather than my phone being on the ram mount and having the water bead off, it was sitting in a puddle of water inside my jacket, and it broke my phone. It cost me, that was the replacement phone, so it was a $250 phone that I lost in Patagonia, and that ended up being a huge problem for me. So I can't give very high marks for water on this jacket, definitely. Okay, this review video has gone on long enough. I think that that was probably really helpful for you guys. Don't flame me too hard in the comments, and Rev'it, I love you. I love your designs. I love the way your stuff fits. My qualms with the jacket are minimal. I would still recommend it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for this route, because I think you're gonna want a lot more water protection than that jacket offers. And that's it. See you guys next time, where I will be reviewing the the Alpine Stars Andes Dry Star pants that I wore every single day, and how those did. See you next time.